Hello, everyone. Derek Floyd here, IK Multimedia Dflo's Audio Toolbox. Welcome to the segment where we talk to industry professionals who are using our gear out in the field every day and giving us great insight how to use these things and stay creative all the time. We are always excited to have you here on Dflo's Audio Toolbox. And as always, we have great special guests and we give away free goodies. And this time, at the end of our program, we're giving away Amplitude 4, which is one of my favorite plugins. It's a guitar modeling software. It's going to blow your mind. But before we get into that, let's introduce our special guest. Now, today, we've got a gentleman who's been amazing for us. He has been an artist, producer, a music director, you name it. He's been out there. And he's worked with people like Ariana Grande, Kelsey, I can never say Kelsley, I can never say that word right, but Kelsley and Colby, I'm going to let him say all these names, I can't get them right today, I'm having trouble getting it all out of my face here, so I'll let him say the names for me, but lots of people that he's worked along the way, and we'll let him talk about his story, and who he's worked with, and how it's been important for him to have IK Multimedia tools along the way. He's been playing live and being in Nashville for years. Let's let him tell his story. This is Chris Wrate, and here we are. Chris, are you there, buddy?
How's it going, guys?
Man, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too.
And let me pronounce your name properly.
Rate, just ignore the W. So
see,
and yeah, R-A-T-E.
That's how horrible I am. I couldn't even get your name right. That's terrible. That's terrible.
That's all right.
And then we had 3 names of artists, and I'm thinking I never pronounced their names right either. That's terrible. See,
That's all right.
You can't have me as an interviewer, dude. It's so bad.
That's all right. We're already here.
Well, man, I sure do appreciate you coming on Dflo's Audio Toolbox and talk about the products that you use. We've been excited to have you and looking forward to hearing your story. Before we get going, though, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about Chris.
Sure. So I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. Was born in Waukegan, Illinois, and kind of grew up around that Lake Michigan, southeastern border there. And music's career kind of started when I went to a school called the Musicians Institute in California. Did their 2-year associate's program there and was fortunate to make some connections that kind of put me into the touring field as primarily a guitarist at the time. My first audition was with The Offspring, which was a very odd audition for me to do at the time. And then it kind of turned more into working with pop and R&B artists out in LA, and worked out there for about 7 years, and then recently transitioned to Nashville, and that was about 5 years ago, and started working out here and have been touring and working with a country artist out of here again for like the last 4 or 5 years now. So
oh, wow. So you went from LA to Nashville backwards?
That's kind of backwards, I guess, right?
Yeah,
I feel like
some people go Nashville to LA. You went LA to Nashville.
Yeah.
What made that change? Why'd you make that change to go that direction?
I don't know how it even started, because I never ever liked country music, and suddenly found myself listening to country radio a ton when I was out in LA. I think what I enjoyed most was knowing and hearing how sessions and live music worked out there. You would see a lot of times when I tuned into the award shows, I would look and see like, oh, that's the same group that's playing with Jason Aldean or Thomas Rhett or a few people. And I noticed that there was just like a continuity there with the faces that I saw, and I could hear guitars on the records and stuff like that, as I wasn't hearing as much of that anymore in the pop radio. So I just kind of grew this affection for country music, and always liked the idea of being out there. And touring was just hard in Los Angeles. You found yourself busy 1 week or 1 month, and then the next week, not really knowing what you're doing from day to day or week to week or month to month. And it was just hard to I always tell people in LA, you're kind of barely staying afloat, or maybe you're thriving, but it's a roller coaster of a ride.
Wow.
And primarily the housing market is what brought me to Nashville, but I was always interested in the work, and was just fortunate that while I was kind of splitting my time between the 2 cities to find work with a great artist that still employs me to this day, and still get to work with, and have been enjoying the ride with her so far.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And, I would think that as you have worked with so many different artists, have you found a niche that fit your vibe as far as how you play, or your direction, or your guitar, your music direction?
Yeah, I would say as a guitar player, one of the main things that actually influenced my sound, and I felt like was helping me get hired, was actually playing at church. the church I played at was a unique church, very diverse in culture. So we would sometimes open up a set with an Israel Houghton song, and then
Nice.
we would transition into like a Hillsong or Elevation worship song, like
Oh
that you're
wow.
familiar with probably.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot right there.
it covered a wide spread. So you'd be doing a guitar part that might be really funky and dry, and then the next minute you're dialing a different type of sound with delays and reverbs, and it just made me a diverse player. It made me consider parts and the other musicians that I was working with, and I would bring that into context when I was touring, and always trying to figure out where do I fit in the sonic spectrum of sound, and how do I carve out a sound and a part that is cohesive with the other musicians on that stage. And so I would say that carrying all the way into music directing, you're always just kind of thinking, what's everybody doing, listening and reacting off of each other.
Sure. As a music director, though, do you feel like that part of it is something you do offline and on the stage, like you're doing both of the? Because like you get done, you're directing the people on the floor, but you're also kind of taking in and doing something different when you're back in the studio. I mean, in the hotel room, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, in the hotel room, you can be doing everything from listening to a board mix and reviewing shows, and or working with the tracks and kind of figuring out aspects of that. Making good transitions from song to song, and making sure that there's not too many stagnant moments and whatnot. So it's interesting. It's also interesting being in the band while you're music directing, because if you're not kind of doing it from the side, a lot of you is invested into your part, and you got to make sure that you're also present to everybody else's part. So it can be a hard and tough and fun, challenging balance there
I can
to
only
do all
imagine.
those things.
I can only imagine. Do you find that a lot of your creativity happens out of the studio more than even in the studio? Because I mean, you're running all over the place. So when you have to create, is it always in a studio?
No, I wouldn't say it's always in a studio. I mean, obviously, that's an easy example of somewhere where you're coming up with a part, a sound, or whatever it is. But just as well with music, when we're in a rehearsal space, not everything you do at home is going to translate to that room once you get in there with all the guys, and something might be trying to figure out how to create more energy or less energy and dynamics. So I would say that creativity kind of follows you wherever you go, and you're always just, again, kind of listening and reacting to everything, and just making sure that you're putting forth the best sounds and product that you can for your artist.
Wow, wow. So how many times have you landed in a hotel room and needed to work on a project, but headphones wasn't going to cut it? You needed something else.
Yeah, all the time. It's happened in hotel rooms. It's happened in buses. There's been several times where, we've put a show together, and a lot of my work is in accordance with our production team and lighting team, video team. So they might have a vision and say, hey, like there's a lot of things happening behind me that I can't see. And so they'll say, hey, when this show opening's happening, like we're missing this element or that element of it. Is there something that we can do musically that will help bring about this, moment for us? And so you're always kind of, again, when I'm in the band, I can't see that stuff. So I'll step back and kind of listen and watch with them, and see what they're talking about. And then maybe have to go into a room, whether it's the hotel room, or take my, computer to the bus really quick and work something out really quick. And I mean, that's where headphones sometimes, if you're looking for something, especially in the tracks, and you're looking for something really big and robust, it's like, well, my little in-ears might not be able to give that full spectrum of what, we're trying to pull off here. So you got to find some other means.
So that's where I would think the iLoud micro monitors, the utility speaker, comes right into play, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So a prime example, a year ago, I toured primarily with an artist named Kelsey Ballerini, and we were in an arena doing her production rehearsals. And there was a moment where the LD, the lighting director, pulled me aside and said, hey, so we have this big reveal where a big silhouette of Kelsey appears. And the way that the tracks were transitioning at that moment, it was just really subtle kind of crescendo into the music. There was no like big, like, bam, she's here, like the show's starting, to let everybody know, like, hey, we're here, we're ready to go. And so they were asking for something like, hey, can we do like either a big explosion or a big hit there? And obviously the answer is like, absolutely, we could. So I'm looking to see where it is, looking on our tracks. I took our tracks computer really quickly into a conference room in the arena, and I plugged in my micro monitors directly into the headphone jack, and so that's how I was monitoring it. And I used a few samples and layered something in so that there was a big percussive explosion to be in accordance with that video. And I was surprised that, when you're doing something that's sitting around that really low hertz range, you're not thinking that these little monitors are going to be able to produce and emulate, or like you're kind of like, how is this going to hit the subs and the full PA, and what's that going to sound like? But man, those monitors always surprise me, whether it's me playing my guitar through it, or testing tracks, to see the full spectrum that they're able to produce and give you an idea. And sure enough, I put it all together. Wasn't sure if it was mixed right. We tested it out with the video, went straight to front of house, and I was like, hey, do you need me to do anything different EQ wise? And he's like, dude, that's perfect. Whatever you did sounds great. So the fact that those little monitors were able to translate into, our full array of, what we had hung in that arena, speaks to them, so much I can't even say.
That's an amazing story. So in other words, the iLoud micros, your utility speakers, saved the day for you, because you had to mix in a small space in those monitors and trust what you were hearing, and then trust it was going to go to front of house, which is an enormous difference of sound, and it translated. Exactly. That's huge.
Exactly. Yeah, it was amazing. It was, obviously, to just go into a room and come back 5 minutes later and be like, that's exactly it. And be like, well, that was easy, because I just keep those in my backpack, and was able to clean up and put that work together really quickly. So to absolutely save the day.
So in your mind, then, the iLoud micros are probably one of the most accurate speakers out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've used them, I've used them to track guitars. I've used them just to practice with, obviously in the format I was just speaking of. They're so versatile. And especially with the price point that they're at, if there's people out there that are saying, man, I can't afford $1,000 for studio monitors, and I'm tracking guitars or doing some light production from home, songwriting, whatever it is, man, they will do more than the job for you, and they will surprise you.
Wow. So what about using them in an actual studio setting? Like, would you prefer, or would you suggest using them in that way as well?
I think you absolutely can. Again, like it depends. I use the MTMs as well, and those are my main studio monitor. But again, I've used them in a studio format, whether I was working on a song and producing something from home, whether it was working on track work, or somebody giving me a guitar overdub to do from home. I've used them for all of the above, and I would say, again, a great test I think is when I've tested guitar sounds out, and then gone to either play live or gone and then taken my work into a studio and say, hey, I've worked out some parts, I got some sounds, let's see how they test out in your situation in your studio. And it always translates, it's always accurate. And that's important to me, because there's sometimes, whether it's with in-ears or speaker monitors, there might be some coloration. You might have played and done a certain type of tone and been like, oh wow, that's too bright in this scenario or whatever, and everything's been true to form. I've never been surprised, been like, oh, that guitar's too dark. It's always translated well, and my work's always been able to, again, translate to whatever else I move that work to.
Do you find yourself using them for pleasure? I mean, because you got the Bluetooth connection, so you can just pop on your phone and boom, you're playing through the house, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've done everything from hook them up to my vinyl player, to bring them when we're touring, if we're in a locker room or something and we want to get some energy going before we get on stage and we're all kind of just getting dressed, I'll bring them into the locker room and say, hey, if anybody wants to play some pre-show music, here's the Bluetooth, connect to it, and man, people love it. Again, on the bus and in the dressing room, like it's gone everywhere with me. It's an amazing thing to have, really.
How handy is it to be able to just throw them in your backpack and go? I mean, you're taking the actual sound you're mixing from, and you can take it and land it wherever you're at, right? That kind of makes it a big deal.
Yeah, there's such a small footprint, like the size of your hand, and the cabling that you need just to either hook it up to your phone or your computer, and to power them. It's just not much. So yeah, it doesn't take up much space. You can easily put it in a backpack or a small carry-on bag and bring it with you anywhere.
Do you think musicians out in Nashville, that are working in different places, maybe in different studios, different homes, they could benefit from having iLoud micros in the small space?
I think so. There's so much benefit to them anywhere. I've seen some people, use them to do different references with their main studio monitors, and I've seen people use them in capacities like I have, from everywhere to the things I've mentioned to hotel rooms and whatnot. So It's definitely just something like, again, they're so inexpensive to have them and to be able to travel with them. And a lot of people I run into too, if they see me with them and they have them, like, dude, those things are so great. They're so loud. I have them too. Like, best investment I've ever made. Or people hear them and they're like, is that little, those two little speakers making all that noise? And it's like, yeah, it is. Like, they're pretty banging for as small as they are.
And you said they go pretty low, right? So you can actually get a good bass response in them as well.
The bass response out of them is, yeah, it's one of the most surprising things. I think anything that small that you're playing any sort of music through, especially if you have a good reference, if you're playing a song that you kind of know, again, the range of sound that it's covering. And then when you plug into that, I think there's like this initial response that you're like, there's no way that these are going to put out that low end like, you would like them to. But man, again, you're always surprised by what it can do.
So hip hop, EDM, rock, they all play well.
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Hey, I really appreciate your thoughts on that. At the end of the day, then, if you had to tell somebody, look, you need to get this speaker because, give me one good reason that everybody should go out and grab iLoud micros today.
Jeez, man. Well, for all the reasons I just mentioned, I would say are definitely a start. I would just say it's just so flexible. I wouldn't say that I found honestly an area that it doesn't work well. And so for all the reasons we just mentioned, if you're in a studio, if you're on a budget, if you're traveling, if you're any situation, whether it's for pleasure or for work, it's gonna sound great and it's gonna be accurate. There's not, if you do a mix on it, I don't think that there's anything that you're going to be missing. We're going to say, oh, like, there actually wasn't enough low end information on those speakers, and now I need to go do that. I haven't run into any of those problems. So it's just a great tool that is adaptable to so many different scenarios. And that's, I think, what makes them great is their adaptability with the Bluetooth connectivity, the connectivity to a headphone jack and beyond.
And what about the connection of the EQ and back? Have you found yourself adjusting those pieces as well? The high pass, low pass, roll off, do that as well?
Sure. One of the functions I think I use the most, especially in close proximity, if you're in a hotel room and you're kind of pushed up against the wall and you got to, you can use the desk format, because in that situation, there's been times where I've honestly been like, I think these things are actually got too much bottom end going on. And you might recognize that there's some reflections coming off of that wall. So yeah, there's some cool ways that, they have obviously thought of ahead of time and the ways that these are going to be used. Like, they got ahead of the game there and allowed you to be able to adapt and say, okay, let me reduce some of this, or maybe let me amplify this frequency, or maybe just leave it flat, whatever is going to work for you. So again, another great tool to it that makes it so adaptable to whatever situation you're in.
Awesome. Well, I want to throw it out to the people that are watching today, see if they have any questions for you, because I know there's always a couple things out there people want to know, like how you've been using it, but you explained everything so well there may not be any questions today, which is pretty awesome. Good. So we'll give a couple seconds. If anybody has any questions, we'd love to hear from you out there. If not, we're going to talk a little bit about, you actually have the iLoud MTMs as well, too, right?
That's right.
So you've made the step from the junior one to the bigger one. And how did that transition work out for you, just before you close it up?
Oh, great. As soon as I saw that those were coming out, I knew I wanted them, just because I was like, well, if they're anything like the micros and they're just in that bigger footprint, the only thing I think I have run into is just, maybe clipping out the smaller ones. So, being able to have something with a little more headroom. But man, they're so great. They're one of those things too, where it's like, I want to pack them up and bring them over to the studio when I go to maybe do a session somewhere else, and just be like, hey, I know you got your setup, but you should plug these in real quick and just see how you like them. It's one of those things where you want to share with people, just because it's a great tool and a great affordable speaker for people to get for their studios. And
one of the guys that came on just said, what's the difference between the two for you? What's the immediate thing that you would say separates between the two?
I would say the big difference is the micros are just way more travel friendly, just based off of, again, their footprint, their size. The Bluetooth connectivity is a great deal for that. The MTMs for me, I'm more like, I just want to leave them there and I don't really want to mess with them. I want to position them and get them tuned. That's the other thing too. We can talk about the I believe this is the ARC system, the ability to tune them into the room. So
you can calibrate them, which is amazing. Yeah, that's huge.
So as you can see behind me, my ceilings are kind of funky in here and kind of shifting and vaulted a little bit. So the cool thing with those that you can't do with the micros is I can sit here. Like, I just got this new desk and we're now in a different position. Before I was faced over here. And so I'll take that mic and recalibrate them now, because now we're going to have some different reflections and different sounds based off of where I am in this room. And I've heard a lot of guys do the same thing where they'll bring those into a different studio and say, okay, we're in a different room, let's tune them up and then get them going. That's a really cool feature, man, that I don't even know of exists with any other speaker out there.
I got a guy that says, what is the volume like on the, I guess he's asking about the MTMs. He said, you ever have a problem getting full sound? Do you
No,
get pretty
not
good
at
sound?
all.
Yeah.
Not at all. They're so loud. I think the first thing I did when I got them was crank them up just to see like how far it would take to clip them, and it was impressive how far they would go. Same thing with the micro monitors.
Yeah.
You would be impressed with how loud those things are. We would be in really big locker rooms sometimes for a dressing room, and somebody would be playing, you know, any type of music from hip hop to rock or whatever, and the way that those things were hitting in a wide open room were pretty impressive. So both of them have a lot of headroom in them.
So it's a great partnership. I mean, if you have the small ones, you travel, you take them with you, throw them in your bag, and you can mix anywhere. But when you're home, you have the MTMs that sit right up in front, and you can calibrate them and have a perfect room. And even if you have to travel with the MTMs, you can. But we have the micros for you that you can go and put them in a bag and make it happen, right?
Exactly. I think the two pair well together if you can, you know, afford to get both of them. And honestly, I think buying both sets, you're still looking at spending less money than the cost of just one pair of, you know, really good studio monitors. So you're saying that you could have the, you know, the travel version and then the stay-at-home version maybe for you or whatever it might be for your situation. But the two pair well together and they work well. And yeah, I couldn't recommend them more enough.
Well, man, I sure do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about the tools that you use. We're always excited to talk to industry professionals that we don't say, oh, just use our stuff for us. You used it because you like it. You use it because it works. And you're a professional in the industry that sees this every day. So your word and your credibility to us means a lot. So we thank you for coming on and talking to us, talking to our subscribers as well. And, you know, everybody out there watching, we appreciate you coming on with us. And no, we're not done. We're going to do the giveaway today. Of course, we're going to give away Amplitude 4, which is pretty amazing. This thing is out of control. Chris, I know you've used it in the past as well. We're talking about every model on the planet's in there. It just sounds amazing. And we want to give some lucky person today Amplitude 4. So we're going to do a question. We're going to ask them a question for a seat. Ooh, super easy question. And you have to enter the question in the chat, and my team will take care of it for you who's going to get it for him. But give me one person that Chris has worked with in Nashville since he got there. We gave you 3 or 4 names from the very beginning. So choose one of those names of who he's worked with when he got to Nashville. And you could be the winner of Amplitude 4 today. Chris, thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Good
and
to
you
talk
take
to
care of yourself out there. And hey, wash those hands. Be careful. Take care of yourself. You know.
Always.
All right.
We'll talk nearby.
We'll talk to you next time, buddy. Take care.
Right,
and you guys stay on. Let's keep seeing who's going to get that Amplitude 4. Remember, we need one person who he worked with when he got to Nashville, and that will be the winner of the Amplitude 4 today. Thanks again for being a part of Dflo's Audio Toolbox. Take care, guys. Be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.